Let's proceed now to learning objective 2. That is to compute your DM price and quantity variances, and not just compute, we should be able to explain their significance. Now, for us to better illustrate your material variances, let's take a look at this example. So you have here Glacier Peak Outfitters has the following DM standard for the fiber fill in its mountain parka. So, ano ba yung binigay sa atin na standard? So, 0.1 kilogram of fiber fill per parka at how much per kilogram? At $5 per kilogram. Now, additional information, last month, 210 kilograms of fiber fill were purchased and used to make how many parkas? 2,000 parkas. While the material cost is how much for a total of 1,029. So, if we analyze the given, this one, itong naka-color red, this is our standard price and standard quantity. So your standard price is $5 per kilogram. And then your standard quantity for each unit of parka, you should be able to use 0.1 kilograms. And then this is the actual result. So looking at your actual result, anong sabi? You were able to use how many kilograms? 210, because how many parkas did you manufacture? 2,000. And then how much was the total cost of this 210 kilograms? It cost you how much? 1,029. In my solution, I will use the traditional method because I am more comfortable using the traditional method. So let's compute for your materials price variance and your materials quantity variance. So your materials price variance is simply the difference nitong dalawa, right? So let's compute for your actual quantity times your actual price. Yung total nun is 1,029. Diba? Kasi stated na yun, stated na to clearly kanina sa problem na you consumed in actual 210 kilograms and then the cost of the 210 kilograms is 1,029. So if we work back, we can compute the cost per kilogram of how much? 4.9. And then actual quantity times your standard price. Your actual quantity, you used up 210 kilograms, but based on your standard, you should have used you should have spent how much? $5. But in actual, you spent only 4.90. That's why your price variance is favorable. Let's repeat that. What I am computing currently using the traditional method is the price variance for your materials. What do I need to compute for your price variance? I need to compute the difference between your actual quantity multiplied by your actual price less your actual quantity multiplied by your standard price. Ma'am, pwede ko ba itong i-shortcut? Yes, you can do the shortcut. Paano yung shortcut nun? Just get the difference between your actual price of 4.9 and your standard price of 5. And then, the difference, you just simply multiply that by 210. Kasi the same naman yung multiplier natin, which is actual quantity. You will still arrive with a price variance na favorable na how much? 21. Why is this favorable? This is favorable because your standard price is higher than your actual price. Your standard price is 5 while your actual is only 4.9. Ma'am, how did you arrive with 4.9 nga ulit? That's 1,029 divided by 210. Now, to continue, let's compute for your quantity variance. For your quantity variance, as we can see, it's unfavorable by how much? $50. How did we arrive with the unfavorable variance of $50? We get the difference between your, ang kinuha ko is the difference between your actual quantity multiplied by your standard price less your standard quantity times your standard price. Now, if you notice with the formula, may common denominator naman sila, which is your standard price. So if I will solve this, what I will do, I will just simply get the difference between my actual quantity of 210 and my standard quantity of 200 kilograms. That will give me how much? 10 kilos. And then I will multiply that by 5, which is our standard price. And I will still get $50 na unfavorable variance for your quantity variance. Now, ma'am, if you will ask me ngayon, how did you arrive with 200 kilograms? Now, if you go back to the previous slide, if you go back to the data given, we were told that for Glacier Peak, the standard quantity is 0.1, that's 0.1 kilogram for every finished parka. So how many parkas were produced during the year? That's 2,000 parkas. So if you get 0.10 of 2,000, you will arrive with 200 kilograms. So dapat for the 2,000 parkas produced, you should have only used 200 kilograms, but you actually used 210. That is why your variance is unfavorable. In the slide, we can see another way of computing your material variances. This one is using your factored equations. Now, between this one and the traditional method, I am more comfortable using the factored equations. So, if you notice, the result will still be the same. So, materials price variance, if you use the factored equations, all you have to do is multiply actual quantity with the difference between your actual price and your standard price. For MQV naman, all you have to do is multiply your standard price by the difference between your actual quantity and standard quantity. So at this point, we have already computed the two variances for materials, that's price and quantity. The next question is, kailan ka magko-compute? When will you compute those variances? With regards to materials, with regards to price variance, it's a common practice for companies to compute for the materials price variance right after they purchase the materials. For quantity variance naman, it's a common practice for most businesses to compute for the materials quantity variance when those raw materials are being used up in production. In understanding your material variances, please note of this, Your MPV is computed using the entire amount of materials purchased during the period, while your materials quantity variance is computed using only the portion of materials that was used in production during the period. The purchasing manager and your production manager are usually held responsible for the materials price variance and materials quantity variance respectively. The standard price is used to compute the MQV so that your production manager will not be held responsible for the performance of the purchasing manager. Although, minsan, there are instances wherein your materials variances are not always entirely controllable by one person or department. For example, your production manager may schedule production in such a way that it requires express delivery of raw materials, resulting in an unfavorable materials price variance. So if that will be the case, that should not be the responsibility, the variance na unfavorable should not be linked to the performance of your purchasing manager, because the variance resulted to the what you call this unscheduled production that required an express delivery of your raw materials. Or pwede rin your purchasing manager may purchase lower quality raw materials resulting in an unfavorable materials quantity variance for the production manager. So if that is the case, even if I have stated earlier that MQV is the responsibility of your production manager, but if the quantity variance resulted to a lower or poor quality of raw materials kasi nga, for example, nagtitipid si purchasing manager so that she or he can have a favorable price variance, then even if the MQV is the responsibility of the production manager, for cases like this, it will not be the responsibility of the production manager. Instead, MQV will be the responsibility of your purchasing manager. What's the reason behind? It's because the purchasing manager purchased lower quality of products, which resulted to unfavorable quantity variance. For example, dati-dati I will only be needing 2 pieces of egg. Example lang, 2 pieces of egg to come up with one product. But since the quality ng egg is mas maliit than the normal, so I need to use 3 eggs instead of the normal na 2 to compensate for the difference in size. Now, how come si purchasing manager bumili ng smaller eggs ngayon? Kasi mas mura siya. We expect na mas mura. That's why sa purchasing manager, nagkaroon siya ng motivation to purchase smaller eggs in exchange for a lower price. But then, pagdating nung egg sa production department, na production manager realized na hindi enough yung 2 itlog to come up with a finished product. It requires ngayon 3 eggs. So the standard is to use only 2 eggs, but the production department ended up using how many eggs? 3. So, even if there's a materials quantity variance, that is not a responsibility of your production department. Kaninong responsibility yan? Magiging responsibility yan of your purchasing department. Now, we are done computing and understanding materials variances. So let's have learning objective 3, and that is to compute the direct labor rate and efficiency variances and explain their significance. So just like your material variances, for labor variances, let's have also an example. So for Glacier Peak Outfitters, ito yung kanyang standard for direct labor and the standard niya for labor hours and labor rate. So the standard states that 1.2 standard hours yung required per parka at how much rate per hour at $10 per hour. And then the actual hours used during the year is during the month rather is 2,500 hours to complete the 2,000 parkas. And then Glacier paid how much labor cost for the 2,500 hours. Glacier spent $26,250 for the 2,500 hours. So using yung given, let's now compute for your labor variances using the traditional method. So first, let us compute for your labor rate variance. Now, if you will recall, the same formula lang ito sa inyong materials price variance. Yun lang. It is more appropriate to use rate compared to price if we refer to labor kasi mas may dignity yung rate compared sa price. Labor tao. So, to compute for your labor rate, all you have to do is get the difference between your actual hours multiplied by your actual rate and your actual hours times your standard rate. Or the shortcut niyan, anong shortcut na to? Just get the difference between your actual rate and your standard rate, and then yung difference na yon, you multiply that to your actual hours. So, using that formula, and then substitute lang natin based on the given, then we will arrive with a labor rate variance of 1,250. Actual hours na nagamit for the 2,000 parkas is 2,500. The standard rate is 10, while you spent an actual of how much? 10.5 per hour. How was 10.5 per hour computed? That's 26,250 divided by your 2,500 hours. So if we notice, mas mataas yung inyong actual rate by 50 cents compared to your standard rate. Your actual rate is 10.5 while your actual rate is 10.5 while your standard rate is only 10. So, we have an unfavorable variance of 1,250. That's 25 times the 50 cents per hour. For efficiency naman, this is also known as quantity. For materials. For labor, we call that efficiency variance. So how do we compute for your efficiency variance? To compute for your efficiency variance, all you have to do is just get the difference between your actual hours multiplied by your standard rate and your standard hours multiplied by your standard rate. Or, to simplify that one, all you have to do is get the difference between your actual hours less your standard hours. The difference, you multiply that to your standard rate. We have computed, or sorry, we are told that the standard rate is how much? 10. And we were told from the previous slide that the actual hours used is how many? 2,500 hours, yung actual hours na na-spend for the 2,000 parkas. And your standard hours lang to come up with 2,000 parkas should have been how many hours lang? 2,400 hours. So, the difference here is 1,000. We have a variance of 1,000 because 25 hours times 10 is 25. 24 na dapat na oras lang. So, ano itong 24? The should be hours spent on the 2,000 parka. So, 24 times 10, that's 24. So, there is a difference of how much? 1,000 difference. And the difference is unfavorable simply because your actual hours spent is more than the required standard hours or what should have been spent on the 2,000 parkas. So just like your materials variances, I am also showing to you how to compute labor variances using the factored equations. So, eto siya. Paki-go over na lang ha. And I forgot to mention sa previous slide, paano nga pala na-compute yung standard hours na 2,400. Now, the 2,400, how was that computed? Remember, kung balikan nyo yung data for the labor variances, the standard hours for one finished parka is only 1.2 hour. So, if you will have one parka na i-manufacture, you should spend only 1.2 hours. And then, for this example, how many parkas ang na-produce in a period? 2,000 parkas yun. So, when you multiply 2,000 parkas by 1.2, the number of hours that should have spent for the 2,000 parkas is 2,400. So, that's how I computed for your standard hours. Labor variances are partially controllable by employees within the production department. For example, production managers or supervisors can influence the following. 1. the deployment of highly skilled workers and less skilled workers on tasks consistent with their skill levels. The level of second is the level of employee motivation within the department. Another factor to consider is the quality of your production supervision. And lastly, you can also consider the quality of the training provided to the employees. Just like in materials, not all labor variances are entirely controllable by one person or department. For example, yung maintenance department ninyo may do a poor job of maintaining production equipment. This may increase processing time required per unit, thereby causing an unfavorable labor efficiency variance. Or pwede rin, si purchasing manager may purchase again lower quality raw materials resulting in an unfavorable labor efficiency variance for the production manager. For example, sa efficiency, di ba efficiency talks how fast you are able to complete a particular task. So, pwedeng maging unfavorable ito, wherein you will be using more labor hours than what you have set as standard for the required hours to finish a particular task. Say, for example, si purchasing department purchases a poor quality of raw mats. Tapos, dapat sana, example, I need to cut that particular materials. Kaso sobrang tigas than the usual. So, instead of, it will take me lang 30 seconds to finish cutting one piece, it will take me na ngayon mga 45 seconds. Kasi nga, yung material mas matigas than the usual. So, if that is the case, hindi ito responsibility ng production department. That particular variance is not the responsibility of the production department. Again, kanino magiging responsibility yan? It will go to your purchasing department. Yung example naman earlier about the maintenance department doing a poor job in maintaining your production equipment, then again, that is not a responsibility of your production department personnel. Magiging responsibility yan ngayon ng inyong maintenance department.